On the spec sheet, these two could barely be more different from one another. The twin-turbo M3 xDrive has huge power and torque, a seriously trick four-wheel drive system, 4 doors and 5 sportingly luxurious seats. And it costs not far shy of 100 grand once a few choice options have been added. The Caterham 360R, on the other hand, is the epitome of simplicity and is all about the purity of driving. It weighs not much more than a quarter of the BMW, has a third as much power and torque, and is resolutely rear-wheel drive. Its gearbox is also a 5-speed manual, whereas the BMW has an 8-speed auto with paddles. Everything about them is the polar opposite of the other, except for one thing: their power to weight ratios. The BMW, for all its technical superiority, boasts 271 bhp per tonne. The Caterham 321 bhp per tonne. And on a track where the numbers that appear on the stopwatch are really the only things that matter, well, power to weight is everything, isn't it?
One of the things about the regular M3, the latest M3, is that it has immense traction. So even though it's got 503 horsepower and as much torque as a McLaren F1, that's mad, that, isn't it? As much torque as a McLaren F1. But even though it's got that, it actually has really good traction, which means you go forwards. But the four-wheel drive car on this track really shows how much better, how much faster you can go with a well set up four-wheel drive system. This is not like a four-wheel drive system from yesteryear where you just basically got understeer and lots of traction in the wet. This is way cleverer than that, way more clever, way more complex. It basically allows you to drive it just like a rear-wheel drive car until you get to the point where it kind of wants to do that kind of thing, and then, and only then, does it start to throw the juice towards the front axle. It's really clever and it works just really well. You can finally unleash and unlock all the latent energy that there is under there being produced by that thundering twin turbo straight 6 via your right foot, and you can use so much more of it, so much more of the time. So I think even though the Caterham has got agility and lightness and precision, etc., all on its side, and quite a lot of horsepower, I'm not sure it's going to be able to deal with this thing around here in terms of lap time. I'm really not. But as they say, there is only one way to find out. This is going to be a good one. Every time you get in a 7, it's just a thing of joy, it really is. This one isn't the absolutely crackers version. It's a nice balance of a reasonable amount of poke with all the other attributes that it just makes 7s unique. The tiny little cockpit, which is actually a bit more civilised than 7s have been before. Lovely little steering wheel. The impression that you're sitting right over the back axle, and just everything is instant and immediate and precise, to the point that your foot feels directly linked to what happens at the rear tyres. I can't quite explain it, but that makes the driving experience of a 7 just feel so much simpler than so many other cars. It is just your feet, your eyes, your brain, and this car. Quite a bit of this too. It's just a lovely thing to drive. And as ever, they're really quick, especially on tracks. This one is not one of those 7s that absolutely tears the straights to shreds. It's all about what happens in the corners, it's all about what happens under brakes. Because when you've only got half a tonne to stop, you don't need anywhere near as much room to stop it as you do when you've got nearly 2 tonnes to stop, as you have got in the M3. All right, the M3's got four-wheel drive. All right, the M3's got twice as much power, twice as much torque, much more sophisticated diff, gearbox, etc. But I don't reckon the M3's going to be that much quicker than this thing on a flying lap. Let us see.
So with the lids on and the belts done up nice and tight in each, here's the bit that matters most. There was a time when power to weight was all that mattered when it came to lap times, but not anymore. Because even though the M3 is nowhere on bhp per tonne beside the Caterham, a combination of torque, grip, traction and damping mean it takes the 7 apart on overall lap times. And it's the traction and acceleration it generates that make the biggest differences. Conclusion? The Caterham is still a delightfully pure car to drive, no question. But to compete with the mighty BMW, it simply needs more poke to keep up down the straights. A 420R would probably do the trick. A 620R would definitely sort the M3. Cheers for watching, see you next time.